The sky over Poland in the summer of 1944 was thick with smoke and sorrow. It was the night of July 22nd, when soldiers of the Red Army broke through German lines and stumbled upon something the world had never seen before. Past the barbed wire and guard towers lay Majdanek, a Nazi concentration camp still standing almost as it had operated. The ovens cold only for a day, the ashes still warm, the smell of death saturating the air. Soviet soldiers entered quietly, their boots crunching over piles of shoes, bones and bullet shells. None could have imagined what waited inside. Here they found horror turned into routine, where mass murder had become mechanical precision. And at the center of this machine was a man whose name would become synonymous with brutality, Erich Muhsfeldt, the SS officer who led men into darkness and never looked back. Before we reveal the shocking truth behind his execution, pause for a moment of purpose. This isn't just history, it's a warning written in ash and bone. Subscribe now to History of Army and turn on notifications. Join a community that keeps the truth alive, no matter how painful, because forgetting men like Muhsfeldt risks letting them be born again. The birth of a killer Erich Muhsfeldt was born on February 18, 1913, in the province of Brandenburg, still part of the old German Empire. His early life gave no hint of the cruelty to come. He worked as a baker, learned a trade and married young. To neighbors he was quiet, maybe shy, an ordinary man in extraordinary times, but history twists ordinary men when power whispers temptation. When Adolf Hitler rose to power in 1933, Germany drowned in propaganda, promising revenge for national humiliation. Muhsfeldt answered that call. He joined the SA, the brown-shirted enforcers who terrorized streets with shouts of Heil Hitler and clubs in their hands. A few years later, he found a new uniform, sleeker, blacker, far deadlier. He joined the SS, the Schutzstaffel, the ideological elite of the Nazi regime. To be SS was to pledge allegiance, not to nation or humanity, but to a vision of racial supremacy. By 1939, with war breaking across Europe, his transformation was complete. The baker had become a soldier. The man had become a weapon. The Death's Head Division, in 1940, Muhsfeldt was assigned to the Totenkopf, or Death's Head units, the branch responsible for concentration camps. Their symbol, a skull and crossbones, stood for death without mercy. Theodor Eicke, their founder, trained his men not for combat but for domination. The prisoners they guarded were to be treated not as humans, but as pests to be eradicated. Within this environment, Muhsfeldt thrived. Violence gave him authority. Cruelty became pride. Over time, he grew accustomed to the screams, to the smell of burning flesh. It became normal. But arrival at Auschwitz by August 1940, Muhsfeldt reported for duty at Auschwitz. At first, the camp served as a prison for Polish resistance fighters. But soon it evolved into the Nazi Empire's most efficient engine of mass murder. He worked as block leader and commander over prisoner work units. Survivors described him as cold, expressionless, but when drunk, uncontrollable. He walked through the rows of starving inmates with a whip in hand, looking for minor mistakes, a crooked salute, a cough during roll call, an uneven step, all reasons to beat, humiliate or kill. But in 1941, he was reassigned to a darker post, the crematorium chief. His next destination was Majdanek near Lublin. Here he found his true domain, the crematorium. Beneath his watch, prisoners were burned daily, their ashes scattered as fertilizer for nearby fields. When Zyklon B gas arrived at Majdanek, it changed everything. The Nazis found mass killing no longer required bullets or witnesses. Gas chambers disguised as showers became factories of annihilation. Muhsfeldt didn't just supervise them, he perfected their operation. He ensured that bodies moved in rhythm from chamber to table, from table to flame. Witnesses later testified how he drank while watching bodies burn, sometimes making jokes about the efficiency of the system. The scale of death was unimaginable. Between 80,000 and 120,000 people perished in Majdanek before its liberation. Many were Jews sent from across occupied Europe. Others were Polish resistance fighters, Soviet POWs, and children too young to understand why the world had turned against them. Operation Harvest Festival. In November 1943, Heinrich Himmler ordered Operation Harvest Festival, a final act of mass extermination to crush Jewish uprisings once and for all. Majdanek, Travniki and Poniatowa became killing fields. On the morning of November 3rd, the massacre began. Thousands of Jews were forced to undress and march into trenches. Music blared from speakers to hide the gunfire as SS men, including Muhsfeldt, opened fire in waves. The soil turned to blood. For 2 days, nearly 43,000 people were executed. It was the largest single massacre of Jews by German hands during the war. Afterward, Muhsfeldt celebrated. Witnesses said he laughed and toasted with vodka, as smoke still rose from mass graves. The sadist of Majdanek, Muhsfeldt, was not just a bureaucrat of death. He was destruction made flesh. He beat prisoners until their bones snapped. He forced starved men to fight each other for his amusement. He punished women who cried for their children. And when the killing slowed, he found ways to continue it, selecting victims to hang in the crematorium to keep the death rate consistent. One survivor recounted him saying, "I'll burn you alive before this week ends." It was not an idle threat. In one case, a young Polish woman learned she was to be gassed. She fought like a cornered animal, scratching Muhsfeldt's face, shouting for mercy. In response, he bound her limbs to the crematorium cart and had her rolled into the furnace alive. That moment became legend among survivors, the perfect symbol of his sadism, liberation, and return to Auschwitz by. July 1944. Red Army forces broke through Lublin's defenses. Majdanek was one of the first camps to be captured almost intact. Soldiers and journalists walked through scenes of unimaginable horror, rooms filled with gas residue, furnaces choked with bone, piles of personal belongings, hair, glasses, wedding rings, all that remained of thousands, but Muhsfeldt had escaped. He returned to Auschwitz and took command of the crematoria at Birkenau during the liquidation of the Hungarian Jews. Between May and July 1944, 440,000 Hungarian Jews arrived at Auschwitz. Almost all were dead within hours. Muhsfeldt made sure of it. Witness from within, among the prisoners forced to work in Auschwitz's crematoria, was a Hungarian Jewish doctor, Miklos Nyszly. His testimony would later shape history. Nyszly described Muhsfeldt as both calculating and terrifyingly calm. He killed effortlessly, then sought medical treatment for his nerves. After shooting 80 prisoners one day, he complained of heart palpitations. When Nyszly asked whether the executions influenced him, Muhsfeldt replied that killing 1 or 80 makes no difference. That answer reveals the terrifying truth about him. He wasn't driven by ideology anymore, only habit. Killing had become his identity. There was another moment that haunted Nyszly forever. A 16-year-old girl who survived a gassing. Her lungs somehow resisted the poison. When she was found trembling, Muhsfeldt refused to spare her. He ordered one of his men to shoot her in the neck. "Mistakes," he said coldly, "must be corrected." Such efficiency would define his career until the very end, the collapse phase. Germany's front lines disintegrated. Muhsfeldt moved through chaos. In early 1945, he was reassigned to Flossenbürg concentration camp. There he supervised death marches, grueling evacuations where starving inmates were forced to walk for miles through blizzards. Those who stumbled were executed on the spot. Eyewitnesses claimed Muhsfeldt personally shot dozens during these marches. Even as the Reichsdream crumbled, his violence did not slow. For his loyalty, Hitler's command awarded him the War Merit Cross, second class, a blood-stained piece of metal pinned to a soulless chest. When Germany surrendered in May 1945, Muhsfeldt didn't die in battle. He hid. He tried to blend into the flood of refugees, pretending to be an ordinary soldier. But the world was no longer blind. Justice in 1946, Allied forces captured him. At a U.S. military tribunal, he was sentenced to life imprisonment for war crimes. But the story didn't end there. Poland demanded his extradition. They wanted him tried on their soil, near the ashes of the people he helped murder. In November 1947, he stood before the Supreme National Tribunal in Krakow during the Auschwitz trials. Survivors faced him again, older, broken, but alive. One by one, they told their stories. Each testimony carved another wound into history. They recalled his temper, his whip, his laughter around the crematoria. He showed no remorse. He said he had followed orders. He said others were worse. But even among Nazis, Muhsfeldt's name carried disgust. His own comrades described him as a drunk, lost in violence. On January 24, 1948, the Polish tribunal sentenced him to death. At dawn in the Montelupik prison courtyard he was hanged. He was 34 years old. His body was later given to the University of Krakow's medical students. A grim lesson on anatomy and morality, the legacy of evil after the war. Miklos Niesli recorded one final note. Muhsfeldt's wife died in an Allied air raid, and his son was sent to the Russian front, never to return. A fitting fate for a family built on cruelty and delusion. No one mourned Erich Muhsfeldt. No flowers, no memorial, no tears. His name vanished into the footnotes of history, precisely where it belonged. Hundreds of thousands of innocent voices, however, still echo. From the ashes of camps like Majdanek and Birkenau, they remind us what humanity becomes when hate rules unchecked. Their silence is the only monument Muhsfeldt deserves. Lessons from the ashes? History's darkest figures always begin as followers. Muhsfeldt was not born evil. He became evil, one decision at a time. He chose obedience over empathy, loyalty over conscience. Every act of cruelty began with a thought unchallenged, and that is why his story must be told. Because forgetting men like him is how history repeats itself. When we stop questioning authority, stop seeing others as human, stop caring about truth, we open the door once again to the furnace. The liberation of Majdanek revealed not just Nazi crime, but the capacity of ordinary men to commit extraordinary evil. It is that revelation that should haunt us far more than the bodies left behind. A call to remember, if this story moved you, let it move you to act. The death of Erich Muhsfeldt was justice delivered, but justice is only complete when truth survives. Like this video, share it and subscribe to History of Army. By doing so, you help keep history alive, so the next generation learns not just from triumphs, but from tragedies. Ring the bell so you never miss the next episode, uncovering the hidden chapters of our world's wars and revolutions. And remember, evil thrives in silence. Speaking about it breaks the spell. The ovens of Auschwitz have turned to dust, but the memory of those who died there must never fade. Because as long as we remember, men like Erich Muhsfeldt will remain what they deserve to be. A warning from history, not a blueprint for the future.